Hey everyone, this is Shan and welcome to the Ascent Academy podcast, where our mission is to bring you tools and inspiration from all around the globe, which can help you ascend on this mountain of life. For this episode of the podcast, we have with us Dr. Divya Hirani. She's a mindset coach, a renowned poet, the best-selling author of the book of Illusions and Ink Spills. Divya's work is dedicated to empowering millennials who aim to live their best lives. Her approach, the perspective she brings into when it comes to mental health and healing is really unique and distinctive. During this whole conversation, I was fascinated by her choice of words and her understanding when it comes to the power they contain. On the podcast, we delve into the transformative power of words, the art of using self expression as the means of self healing, the key to freely expressing yourself, among many insightful topics. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I wanted to start this conversation with you with one of your poem I found on your Instagram, and it just hit me. I think it's a best place to start this conversation. I think like it just summarizes our whole conversation for today. So I'll lead it to
Yeah,
you, and then probably you can elaborate and explain a little bit about
yeah,
the context and the inspiration behind your poem. Okay.
sure.
The poem goes like this.
Mhm.
With the power of thoughts alone, you could elevate yourself from a state of forlorn. In the clutches of paralyzing negativity, you may be an iron grip of debilitating malarkey. But if you imagine yourself to embody your highest self, actively rejecting the parts of you that are shoddy, break free from crippling chains of constraints, you will no longer identify as a helpless, caged animal. Your agency will come back to you as you conquer your id. They take a leaf from the diary of this wimpy kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so what exactly did you want to know? The thought process behind it?
I found this poem really helpful when it comes to, especially for someone who's, let's say, struggling with their mental health. I think you address a lot of great points there, and it's really profound. Like you address the power of thoughts, and you talk about elevating yourself, and
Mhm.
then you tell the person like the power of imagination. Let's say you can imagine yourself and you can function from your highest self, breaking free, from,
Mhm.
let's say, you're the person who's feeling helpless at that point of time and caged. And yeah, you talk about the aid. So there's a lot of things we can tap into, here, and try to understand the psychology behind it. And I think your understanding of human psychology is really brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
They say I'm a natural psychologist, but yeah, I'm just a mindset coach, purely
Uh,
born out of my own desire and desperation to uplift my own psyche.
yeah, makes sense. I can totally relate to that.
So basically, in this poem, I'm just as the lines mention, I'm sort of invoking my highest self, and it is a poem which was meant for me when I was in a slump and I was just in a state of inaction and feeling really rejected, low, powerless. All of that, like the whole. Barrage of human emotions that you go through on a day-to-day basis. But once it gets out of hand, this is my poetic process wherein I literally, with the help of words, try to motivate myself first out of that state of feeling down and out, and then I go onto the socials and share it, because my thought is that if this has helped me so much to break out of my spell of inactivity, then hopefully, if I put it out there, other people can relate to it, and they can be helped in the process as well. So this is the thought behind the poem itself.
Yeah. Can you share probably a story or some anecdote where somebody really got influenced by the your words, and it just changed their life?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a small poem, it's a micro poem that I wrote about how bad intentions and vibes can consume us, and, they can literally put us under their spell, and how it is our constant, striving for a better tomorrow, and it is our constant, just attempt to have a better future that often makes it get past these very sort of dampening and impeding states or phases that we go through. So what happened was that this poetry actually reached one of my now long-term readers, and she shared it with her niece. Her niece was like suicidal at that point, unfortunately, and she was undergoing a lot of trauma, and she was just finding herself really isolated and alone. And when she read this particular micro poem that uh, my reader sent her, she actually felt like she was identified, like she felt identified and understood, and she felt as though it was, just okay to not be okay. So, yeah. So,
Love it. And where did your journey started? As we were talking about in our pre-podcast conversation, your I think your story is really inspiring. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like,
yeah, sure. So, basically, um, in factual terms, like I graduated as a dentist and I came to the UK to create a better future for myself without, like, I just took the chance. I didn't know which way I was gonna go, but I knew that I was determined enough to make it in this country on my terms. And uh, unfortunately, within a month of me moving to the UK, my dad passed away. And that was really sudden and unexpected. And basically, it just like I just froze in my tracks. Basically, I just felt like literally the worst feeling in the world. Like it was something which was much more than I could handle at that time or cope with. So, but then, I had no choice, because when you come to the UK, you realize that you have to be on the hamster wheel working every single day. Like you don't have a choice,
right,
to sustain yourself, you have to work. So I, worked in various sectors, like in healthcare itself. So worked in optics, I worked in cosmetic dentistry, and a lot like medical insurance. I did all this whilst I was studying, and finally I kind of like I decided to settle down in technology. So I've been in my field of technology for the past 6 years, and like I have worked in various multinationals as well as non-profits, and currently I'm really loving life because I think I found my calling,
yeah,
and I really enjoy my job. And basically my challenge was to be able to overcome all the, not only was I traumatized, uh, and that is just an understatement. I was much worse than traumatized. I was like almost like a vegetable, I mean, I could not think clearly and I could not function clearly. In the midst of all that chaos, I had to, work and study and build my future. So the issue here was that, um, I mean, like I was quite vulnerable at that point in time, as you can imagine. So, I mean, some people just, there were certain individuals who thought that they were gonna kick me while I was down, and they were just going to make sure that they drove the last nail in my coffin and that I never come out of this state of absolute, crippling anxiety and trauma and, all the good stuff. So, um, my challenge was to overcome that. And, I was so determined to not let all the negativity and all the naysayers, as you mentioned, like I was very determined that I was gonna show them that what they say is not what goes, and especially not in my life. Like, I'm in control of my destiny, and no matter what life throws at me, I'm going to make sure that that is the case. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what first change you made in yourself, in your life, and
Mm.
how you overcame all of that from that position and coming to now, who you are, and what part writing and poetry played in all of your journey.
Right. So, my poetry journey in the UK started in the privacy of my home. And I mean, I often thought that, there's a whole world out there, and I'm feeling really disconnected with the world right now because of my circumstances, because I was so tied down to my work and to my studies that I had no way of socializing. And, you basically Hollywood puts a glamour spell on you, making you think that, like, if you come to the West, it's going to be all, fun and games, and it's going to be so like mind-blowingly um entertaining for you, or it's going to be such a light and breezy experience. And that's not the case.
That's not the
The
case.
reality, nope, absolutely not.
Everybody
So the
here thinks like
reality,
that. That's so true with what you're saying. Everybody here
yeah,
believes that if you go there, your
yeah,
life is all glamorous and you're living like, James Bond, probably.
yeah. I do know what you're talking about, and I was in the same category. I used to think that I just have to leave India to kind of be able to really develop my wings and fly high as I wanted to. However, I mean, even though today I can say that yes, I have made that happen for myself in a way,
Yeah,
but the process, the journey that I did undergo to get to here was not straightforward. And in fact, it was really like, arduous. And I feel like, um, I mean, at least for me, because I was juggling so many things along with grieving the loss of my dad. So for me, it was not a very pleasant experience. And I feel like poetry helped me because it basically allowed me to express myself and my deepest, darkest insecurities and my fears and all, all of the sort of emotions that made me the vulnerable person I had become. So, in a way, I was using it as a tool to break out of that phase that I had found myself in. And also, I was using poetry to, sort of suss out the country and the new environment. Because, I would often write like I was blogging since blogging wasn't cool. Like, I was writing my
hmm,
poetry in poetry.com
okay.
and sharing it. Yeah, so I was sharing it with a lot of people, and most of them happened to be Westerners. So I was understanding the culture. I was writing about those aspects of the culture that I found intriguing. And so it was a rich experience in the way that not only did it troubleshoot my emotional issues, but it also allowed me to really get my hands dirty with the English culture and with the Western world, and like not what we see on Netflix or not what we see on the big screen, but what it is, just see it for what it is really. So it helped me to experience and explore that reality better.
What major difference did you found when it comes to how, Indians see the world and how Westerners see the world?
Well, Indians, for example, I mean, as you know, we have this blessed education system that you know uh, that we cannot escape. No Indian can escape that. Nobody is that lucky. So like, and then based in the education that we are offered in India, basically, that decides the quality of life you're gonna lead, and because everything is so competitive and everything is so like the resources are so limited and
Hmm.
restricted. That's why I feel like it brings out quite like it brings out the dark side in most people. It obviously, nobody's jaded to begin with. Like when we enter our childhood, like when we go into our formative institutions like schools, etc., like there is a degree of innocence there in the students, and but then you soon realize that it is all a game. You just realize that you really need to be on your A game if you want to survive. So I would say it's more cutthroat in India, right? And that trickles down into interpersonal relationships and all of that. So, as far as the West is concerned, I feel like just because they are endowed, like they're much better endowed with resources and with, just a better sort of even in like IQ, intellect, and like just the even their basic education is of a higher quality and higher degree, so that prepares them for, if not the academic world, then the world of work. But everybody finds their way, in the West,
Yeah.
like people do find their way. And
Hmm.
yeah, but obviously if you're here as an immigrant like I was, that can get really challenging. But people who are born here, they usually, I mean, they know that, they would know that even if they're turning 40 next year, they can turn their life around.
Right.
There's that hope.
Like, I think
Yeah.
you have a fascinating mind, and I wish I could peek into your brain and I can just learn all the words,
Really.
Your choice of words is really, really fascinating. And
Thank you.
I'm curious, when and why did you, started writing?
I started writing, as I was saying, very early on. Like, I used to listen to a lot of songs and consume their lyrics separately, and I would read a lot of verse, and I just started to kind of take it all in, process it, and in a sense, like I would remix it and then create something which was a rehashed version of what I had read. So this is the way my mind is wired, basically. So this is
Hmm.
what I do. So basically, I had started writing poetry when I was a kid, basically. But more seriously, I started writing when I came to the UK. In my blog, like I have been blogging since 2010, and then I wrote the book in 2017, and then I put out micro poetry on Instagram ever since. Since 2017, I think barely a day has gone by when I haven't put out a
Wow.
micro poem or a spoken word piece on my platform. And the reason I do it is to hold myself accountable, and also because I feel like this is my way of giving back and contributing to you know those people in the society that unfortunately like me, they have had their challenges and struggles. So if I can help even a single person, I mean, that is so fulfilling and satisfying for me. And of course I write because it heals me as well. So I mean, I have what they call like a very heavy pain body around my chest, and
Mm-hmm.
basically that means that whenever I recall incidents that have affected my mental health in any way or traumatized me, like that pain body gets really heavy and my chest gets constricted and my breath becomes heavy. And so these are also signs and symptoms of anxiety. So basically I use the tool of writing, or the what they call sublimation of repressed emotions, to basically uh, create something which is of worth and value, as well as to find an outlet for my sort of often crippling emotions which can't come out in any other way. So
Yeah, what you're saying just reminds me of one of your poetry which I wrote down.
mhm.
Like most of us are forced to revisit traumatic memories and related people as a habit.
Yeah,
It is the stress chemicals they generate in our brain to which we are an addict. Try as we may, we can't quit smoking that intellectual cigarette. That's so fucking true. It's like all these traumatic memories and all these negative thoughts. We want to let them, we don't want to think them. We don't want to, you know, remember those memories. But what happens is we keep going back to them again and again. And that's the truth here, your poetry portrays here. And yes, it is like an addiction. Totally. It's like a cigarette. You can't, if somebody has been a smoker, it's exactly like that. It's bad for you. It's not doing anything good for you, but you can't stop. Can you talk a little bit about that?
sure. So I did a bit of research for this particular poem,
Mm-hmm.
and I came across cold hard facts that you know the chemical of adrenaline that gets secreted in our brains when we think about something traumatic that has happened, or something somebody said that has triggered us, that is what we get addicted to, or that is what the basic like for example, if you are familiar with dopamine, it gives you a hit, right? It gives you a high. But this actually gives you a high in a very negative sense. And also this is something which is addictive. This is a chemical that your brain is addicted to, this hit of adrenaline that you get. And adrenaline is linked with the stress that you experience, or the very phenomena of getting triggered basically. So I mean, we get addicted to it and then we revisit it. We revisit it, and like this happens with most of the people I've spoken to. And that's what made me write this down, because in case you're wondering why you do this to yourself, like what's the it's like the rancid milk that you shouldn't be smelling but you keep smelling it, right? So like, why are we doing this? So it's because we are addicted to it. And that's why you would notice that people who have like, maybe they have grudges against you, whatever, like you would find them stalking you, or you would find examples of people who you basically might have had one interaction with them, but something you said triggered them to the extent that it developed in them a hatred or a rivalry for you. So you would see that they would keep revisiting you and checking to see what you are doing with your life. And that's for the exact same reason. It's more like visceral, like it's bodily. It's not something that is so much a game of feelings or emotions, you know.
Yeah,
So
makes total sense. Can you share or read one or more of your poems, which you find the most fascinating?
sure. So this one is called Abundance Academy, and I know that
I
your
love the
channel is
name
called Ascend.
already.
Okay, cool. So it goes, this game is rigged in your favor if you choose to accept that as your reality. There are so many miracle macarons for you to savor in the quantum afternoon tea. So this poem actually combines my love for food and quantum physics in a way,
Hmm.
because it is my see, I used quantum physics as a tool very early on because I was so devastated with my actual reality that I was finding explanations as to how there could be alternate realities that could also be existing along with the experiential reality
So
that I
you,
found
you
myself.
understand quantum, right? And
Yeah,
you like synchronicities.
yeah.
So I'll give you one synchronicity. And whenever synchronicities happen, it's just like, to me, it's like a kind of a proof that I'm on the right path, when things come through. So
Yeah,
so I only wrote two or three of your poems, which I was going to tell you. And one of it
yeah,
is, the game is rigged in your favor if you choose to accept that as your reality. There are so many miracle macarons for you to savor in the quantum afternoon tea.
yeah.
It's the same.
It's the same one. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, inspiring you to think beyond your circumstances and not thinking of yourself as a victim of your circumstances,
Mhm.
because, in a parallel universe or in a parallel reality, uh, what it is that you're suffering from is not even real. It's, there's a different and alternate version of your life and you as the main character in that life that is experiencing another reality. So for me, this was just a coping mechanism because things had literally gotten that bad. So I was so desperate to find anything that I could hold on to so that I would not sink to the bottom of the ocean. So this was something that really helped me, and so I thought, why not like write a poem about it and share. And it's a funny poem, it's not even a very deep and sort of dark poem. It's a funny poem because I'm comparing miracles to the macarons you eat in an afternoon tea, really. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be the case that you're uh literally um in your sweats and depressed and cut off from the world. It doesn't have to be the case. Like, you could be perfectly functional, you could be going for dinners and lunches out, but at the same time suffering, personally suffering. So like, you can apply this timeless wisdom to any phase in your life,
Yeah.
however dark and depressing or let's say socially functional you may find yourself to be.
Mhm. Have you considered a name, poetic psychologist? You are a poetic psychologist. That's what you are. You use poetry. You're a therapist, you're a poet, you're a psychologist, and everything in one. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's just something that's happened spontaneously, and it's just a process of evolution that I've undergone. Earlier I wasn't in a position to actually provide that therapy or provide that psychological guidance, or philosophical as well for that matter. But because I've had to work so hard on myself in order to just, sort of make myself feel comfortable in my skin in a new country and in my circumstances. Like, since it was such a challenge to make that happen, I underwent a massive learning curve, and it was a evolutionary process through which the person who was using poetry as a tool started to use it as a tool to motivate others. Like, instead of the victim, I became somewhat of a sort of encourager or leader of people in a similar situation.
No, that's fascinating. That's why I wanted to talk to you about. I think you understand it very well, and you're coming from experience rather than just bland information. So, like one of my goal with this podcast was the same, like just to bring just practitioners rather than theorists. The people who are coming from experience, and you can feel it. You can feel in the frequency that somebody has gone through something. So I love it, and I would love to know your thoughts on power of words. What do you like when I say this phrase? What comes in your head? Power of words.
Right. So, I feel like language determines our reality, in the sense that our reality, or the way we perceive it, is controlled by our vocabulary or our language, or the limitations of our language. Because, for example, if you aren't familiar with something, like, everything has a related word in the lexicon. If you're not familiar with it, then you can't quite understand it as well. You can't perceive it as a part of your reality if it's happening to you. So I feel like, you need to use words as a it's just a channel to communicate the experiences that you're having as you go through your life. And it's very important to form those neural connections, and to form you know um, the definitions of whatever it is that you think you get affected by. So that's why self expression is really vital for your mental well-being and survival. So it has proved to be the case for me. It has been the one thing that has saved me from utter despondency and isolation. So I feel like words play an important role because they help you to put a label or put a tag on exactly what it is you're experiencing in that moment. And because you're in a position to do that, you're also in a position to do something about it. So,
That's so fascinating. Yeah,
yeah.
words first of all let you explain what you're feeling. So somebody might be feeling something and has no words to explain it, and that just brings you even more despair and confusion onto what's going on. And as you said, like words can even shift your reality. So the words which you are using, and I often pay attention, like since I've started having all these conversations with, let's say, high achievers, coaches, healers, entrepreneurs, and all these people out there, one common theme which I've noticed is they're very observant, and they pay attention to the words they use. They don't use words randomly. They're very conscious of their vocabulary, what they're using. And that's why I started changing my own vocabulary, just watching other people. And like listening to you, I realize why they do that, because it can just literally, it can just shift your reality, and it can make you see things which you haven't seen before. So fascinating. And you have also said, you have talked about being an alchemist, and you have said you believe in turning pain into something beneficial. Can
Yeah,
you talk about a little bit of how can we do that?
of course. So I feel like, yeah, alchemy has been at the core of my philosophy. And the reason that is the case is because, suppose you've been only given pain and, just negativity uh, in your life, like you've been handed that. So it's up to you what you decide to do with it. It's not something that you can just sort of you know accept and make peace with, because if you do that, then that is just a victim consciousness, which, like, you really need to sort of do away with. So if you can turn that pain into something profitable to yourself, then essentially you're making sure that your biggest frustration becomes a phenomenal blessing. This becomes something that takes you to a whole new level. So, as they say, obstacle is the way, or in your biggest frustration lies even $1 million business idea. Like, so I mean, it's all about, because it's a fact that the human life that we all experience, that is going to be filled with troubles and tribulations, and that is unfortunately unavoidable. So what you can do with that is to take that pain and process it and make it something which is which basically benefits you, and basically it needs to um personally you know just elevate you. You can definitely, I can give you my example. So um I had so many people who were uh, waiting for me to fail. People who thought that I would never make it in a city like London, and people who thought that I had no business being on social media and showing my face, on camera, etc. But I took all that. I wrote a book about it to begin with, to express, you know, my challenges, and with the hopes that it would reach somebody out there, and it would resonate with somebody in a similar situation. So I wrote the book, and I also created my social media presence.
Yeah.
All of this in spite of the fact that I was, like, literally asked to not show my face on it. So and at times when you're vulnerable, you do get affected by such naysayers, and you do take it to heart. But basically, I made these, like, whatever was said to me, I doubled down on it and made them my strengths. And I then kind of made it so that I exemplified uh, those very things that I was forbidden to do or to engage in. Like, I wanted to do them, and I wanted to do them well. And with the help of the book, I reached out to many people out there.
Yeah.
And I uh, so, I mean, there hasn't been any looking back, really, because it was that limiting belief, that people inject into your mind when you're not in a position to have personal boundaries or safeguard yourself against, just this kind of the external voices that you can't, like, really disassociate from always. So once you get past that, you realize that life is an open road, and I mean, it's up to you to take the first step and go down that road, and make whatever it is you want out of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Is there any practical strategy you can suggest to put that shield on when there are a lot of backlash and naysayers out there, just coming at you.
Yeah. Well, one of the strategies that I personally used and I do use is to, but sort of whatever toxicity you experience from whichever people, just burn the bridges with them. And I mean, you are not sort of accountable to them. And if they're throwing negativity your way, or if they're, just basically heckling you in a very, you know, savage way, then I mean, you can just, uh, you know, first of all cut off the ties, because that's where it all begins. You decide to take back the control. You don't give them any of your energy. You put that energy back into yourself. You use that energy that is leaking from you at that point to, make something happen for yourself. So, and then my personal journey has been such that I have redirected the energy to myself, to elevate myself to the extent that, like, I have created sufficient distance between the naysayers and myself. And now, I'm just sort of utilizing the things that I was told as an example of what is not right with the world. It's not right to just, randomly shoot people down because of your own inadequacies, or because you're projecting something that you lack onto them. So because I have done this and created a distance between, this is how you create a distance. You redirect the energy to yourself and elevate yourself, keep moving forward, so that that distance gets created automatically.
Yeah, that's a great advice, actually. It's a great advice. Love it.
Thanks.
Let's say somebody who understands the power of words and understands the value you're trying to convey when it comes to self expression in dealing with life. Okay, it's not just about mental health or anything, it's just like life in general. So, what practical advice you will offer to someone who may be interested in using self expression? It can be poetry or any other art form as a means of coping with life's challenges.
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, I mean, you have to believe in the power of authenticity and being true to yourself. And you also have to, you know, like, you have to have those beliefs that the world is not black or white. It's not all bad or it's not all good. No matter what your experiences have been like, you will come across some, good eggs out there as well, who could be strangers for you. Like, they could be colleagues, whatever. Like, you will find good people. So, like, when you're expressing yourself and your deepest, darkest thoughts, you can imagine that they're reaching that avatar of a stranger who you don't know enough about them, but you feel like you can communicate to them through your art, or through whatever form of expression you choose. And that in itself will help you get past the hesitation of, uh, what will people think. And I haven't had such great experiences with my own personal circle, maybe, or whatever. So, like, who cares? Just look, like, look at the end goal of communicating your thoughts to that stranger who doesn't know anything about you, but they understand you through, your particular form of self expression. They understand you better, and hence, you know that like is mutually beneficial for them as well as for you. So,
No, makes sense. Total sense. And what do you think is the
yeah.
greatest roadblock people face in expressing themselves boldly, and how we can overcome that?
I think it's the I do think it's the voices that people put in your head. It's their limiting beliefs that they want to transfer to you. Like, you will never be good at this. And, they are actually basically trying to express that they are the ones who could never do what you do. And, they don't want you to start using that as your strength, or even realize that that is your strength. And so I feel like the limiting beliefs and the chatter of the negative chatter, basically, that people put into your head, like if you can get past those hurdles, right? Like if you can somehow be centered, and from that place of calm collectedness, just you know express yourself or put yourself out there in whichever form you desire to. That is what will help you overcome those roadblocks.
Yeah. Like in psychology, there's a term called projection. People often project their own, flaws, their own fears, especially onto other people. So when somebody is saying, yeah, if somebody is saying you can't do that, they're just saying, I can't do that. If I was in your position, I would not be able to do that. And a lot of times, I think even our loved ones, because they care about us and they love us so much, so especially people who are near you, those are your greatest enemy, your friends, your parents, your loved ones, your lover and all of that. They're gonna because they care about you the most, so they're gonna just put all their fears, because they don't want to lose you, they don't want you to get hurt, and then they're just gonna let you know that how it's not possible, how you're gonna fuck up, and it can just eat you out and stop you. I think, like in my experience, I've seen it being the greatest blockage in when it comes to putting yourself out there or doing something new or even expressing yourself on social media or in any other art form. Yeah. How you have dealt with that?
Again, for me, like, I use a lot of things to distract myself. Like if those negative voices, or if that negative chatter starts to affect me, once those things have been said to me, if I'm if my mind spirals down thinking about those things, and I'm not able to perform in the moment, then I try to distract myself. Like I go for long walks, I have a cup of fragrant herbal tea, I just kind of watch endless amounts of indulgent self-care content on YouTube. Like there are so many small practical things you can do to literally take yourself from that mental like that abyss you've fallen down, and place yourself in a more mindful and more peaceful, positive, happy place. So that's what I do.
Just lay down in a sauna, watch a lot of good positive content, and drink herbal tea. That's the hack for life.
Yeah,
It's a perfect
I
hack for
mean,
life.
you
Love
realize that,
it.
yeah, you realize that more and more as you age and grow older, that these I mean, what could be drowned out by alcohol at some point in time doesn't work anymore, So like herbal tea, that sort of thing, the more like mindful things which are good for you and your body, those are what help.
Yeah. No, perfect.
Yeah.
What do you think is a common advice? This is a very interesting question, actually. I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you think is the common advice out there regarding expressing yourself that you would like to warn people against?
Right. Yeah. So, what I can think on the top of my head is, if you feel a lot of anger, And if you feel any kind of strong intense emotions, right, like that is when you need to seek help. Because if you are gonna rely on self expression, and you're gonna shoot down a bunch of kids because you've been ruminating, and you've been stewing in anger and hatred about some bullying that happened to you in school, and you find your self expression through mass shooting, then that is something that has gotten totally out of hand. And rather you should seek help at that point in time, and rather than just expressing yourself or relying on your own self to cope with whatever triggering or trauma causing incident you've been through.
Hmm. Right. How can somebody can begin on this journey? Like if somebody wants to, what's the first step they take? What's the first step you took? Yeah, to putting yourself, on paper or making art or of any sort, just self-expressing themselves.
you know um, One of the things that happened to me when I uh, went into a state of depression or just sadness, like prolonged sadness, was that I was desperate to return to the mainstream and to contribute in some way. So for me, it came naturally, like I thought that what is the one thing that I can do, which does not require for me to even leave the room. So, it just came naturally to me. So, you have to find, what it is that you can do to, because it will always be a case of you healing yourself using whatever coping mechanism you do, whether it's meditation or whether it's, you know, uh, chanting, or whether, it's poetry writing or just writing in general. You it will come to you. You will see an inner light as to what it is you want to do. And once you find that, once you have that why in place, you will find the what. And then you have to just go ahead and just do it. Like, you don't have to spend ages contemplating it. You just have to put pen to paper if you're writing, or you just have to just go for a yoga retreat in the Himalayas, or whatever it is you feel like can help you come out of that phase of depression. And you just start doing it. So if you're putting yourself out there, that will come later, because it was literally ages before I actually shared publicly what I used to write, on an everyday basis. So, that will come eventually. You will find the courage to express and be authentic to yourself. And, you would find the courage to put yourself out there and be received by the, warm embrace of the world, which is full of people in a similar situation. You just have to have the faith,
Yeah,
so.
eventually you would not, if you, I think, persist at it and you keep doing it for long enough, I think eventually you can't resist the pull of not sharing it. It just happens naturally, as you said. That's so true. Yeah. Like, would you like to share some more of your poetry?
So, I mean, this one is a bit, it will make you think, I hope. So, it's called Truth Bombed, and it goes: is it better to exist in isolation or be exposed to a barrage of selfishness, jealousy, and negative emotion? You risk it all to take one step to a popular destination, and soon realize immersion into your mental metaverse was always the better option. Should I let you
I love it.
sit with that?
I love it. I love it. I think that's my life
Thanks.
actually. What you've described. So
So many of our lives.
yeah.
Yeah.
and a lot of us who are more uh, come from more, like, I'm an antisocial introvert in my life, and I'm
Yeah.
a creative being. I like, uh, as like, I do podcasting and whatnot, and it doesn't sounds, it doesn't sound as I'm speaking the truth, but the truth is I enjoy introspection and self-examination more than I enjoy conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I can totally relate to that. I can get lost in my metaverse and just explore, and find it valuable rather than socialization and things like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I relate to your poetry when it comes to the earlier one, the ascend one.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and this one as well.
Yep.
It's totally. I'm gonna write it down. Sure, I'll keep it with me.
Cool.
How do you
Yeah.
understand this one?
To me, like, this is my truth, this is my life summarized. It's like I've always questioned the, pros and cons of just, sort of letting my guard down and letting all sorts of random people in, because I've had that opportunity. But what I have chosen to do is to, like, really create a sort of moat around myself and not let the kind of people that I can almost sense that they're not gonna contribute. They're just gonna, sort of not further my, like, eternal quest for truth and bliss. Yeah. So basically, for me, like, I have spent a lot of time thinking and reasoning with myself whether, popularity is all it's cracked up to be, whether, you should have a thriving, bursting friend circle and indulge in all the, social gatherings and the clubbing, the dancing, whatever. Like, is that really for me? And I always come to the conclusion that for me, like, the privacy of my room and, you know um, just the ability to either switch off and, do take some me time and just, either watch content, as I mentioned, or to write something creative that really, you know helps me be more authentic and expressive. Like, I would choose the latter. So that's what it's not worth the bargain.
Let's get into the a little bit about you talked about your quest for truth and bliss, and how does self-expression, your poetry, helps you in that?
So I think my poetic process is such that it forces me to revisit or maybe even reopen some old wounds. And, I always try to search for what is the golden nugget here for me to learn, which I can share with people. So, what can I learn from what has happened to me? So, so that is my whole purpose in life at the moment, to, you know, be able to introspect and think deeply about the lessons that I have been taught through the various things that have happened or the experiences I've had, which have in any way traumatized me enough to, force me to think or, just spiral out of control at times. Like, I just, my quest is to take all the learnings from this and, you know, become really clear in my definition of what is my personal truth in this world. Like, what is my what have I realized based on the host of experiences that I have had. And it is my it is my purpose to be able to take those, pieces of, or those nuggets of wisdom or learning, and just, sort of through poetry, um, have them reach out to the masses and as many people as I can.
Are you familiar with the works of Susan Cain?
I think so.
She wrote a book I think you'll love.
Mm.
She wrote a book called Quiet.
Okay.
So it's about the power of introverts in
Yeah.
the extroverted world.
Yeah. Yes, I think there was a TED talk about this by Amy Cuddy as well, which became really famous. So yeah, I know the power of introverts. Yeah, I could be wrong. Sorry, but off the top of my head,
You could be wrong about what?
about Amy Cuddy, I think like I'll have to Google it, but I think she gave a talk
Ah,
about
okay.
the power of introverts. Or perhaps it was Susan Keen herself who gave that talk. So I'm kind of
Yeah, probably you have. Yeah, probably you have heard Susan Cain. She gave a TED talk which
okay.
really got famous. It was shared by Bill Gates. Bill Gates recommended it, and a lot of so in that TED, it's a fascinating TED talk. She talks about like okay, extroverts and everything is cool. Let's think about the greatest inventions, the greatest spiritual quests of life, right? And who are those people doing that, like Buddha left and went alone, let's say Leonardo da Vinci made Mona Lisa. So he's, and all these, amazing people. Not to say that extroverts are not amazing, but sometimes in our world, introverts get shamed, to be for being alone and to be isolated and whatnot. So she just, it will soothe us and it will just confirm our own,
Yeah.
it's a little bit narcissistic for us because we are introverts. But I think you would love it. Just check out that book. So, and what do you think? What other books have greatly influenced your life?
Right. So I think I went through a whole decade of self help and self improvement, productivity kind of, book reading. So I would say my favorite ones, Robert Greene, The 48 Laws of Power, and also other books written by him. And I also like Napoleon Hill's, very legendary texts which have been converted into a commercial venture. But like I mean, those kind of books like really got me interested in this sort of in this direction. Like just I could not only do not only did I consume this kind of work through the form of just books, like standard books, but also I went back and I watched all the available YouTube content about them, read blogs, and just it's just fascinating. I just really enjoy decoding and sort of dissecting human nature. So it's really fascinating for me. And um obviously, like in order to sustain myself in this, in the UK, and thrive in the UK, I've had to really work on myself. And in order to like be able to hold down my several roles in corporate and in the clinical sector, like I've really had to work on myself in many ways. So these books have offered like some really sage advice, which is really practical and useful for anybody who's trying to navigate and find their way in this world. So yeah.
What have you learned so far, which fascinated you? Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing about human nature.
Well, Robert Greene's takeaways are, like usually quite dark, and they're quite like sneaky and underhanded. But I think there's a lot of truth in what he says. Um, I mean, I feel like the most profound realization is that people want you to do good, but they don't want you to do better than them. At the end of the day, we're all self-serving, selfish creatures. Like nobody, like no matter how close you might be to another person, or how uh, your life has unfolded in a way that you have to rely on other people or you have to collaborate with them. Unfortunately, the world we live in, it's like very much cannibalistic. It's man eat man. And I mean, I feel like that realization that at the end of the day, no, people want you to do good, but they don't want you to do better than them, no matter how much of a well wisher they are. Like that just gives me that, insight that at the end of the day, it's each one for themselves.
Yeah. Nobody is coming to save you. So save yourself probably.
Yeah.
Don't wait for any messiah to
Yeah.
come and save you. No, that's a great insight. Love it. So if you're when you're going through this cannibalistic world, as you say, to so we live in that. Let's acknowledge that, but at the same time we have to maintain our sanity, right? So are there any tools or rituals you use on a everyday basis to maintain your well-being?
Yeah. So definitely I have my rituals. So like if I speak about spiritual rituals, I just even burn sage and cleanse the aura. Sometimes I do that. And I also, I have like the biggest collection of herbal tea at the moment, that you can find
Biggest collection in the world.
in my in my circle at least. So so yeah, like those really help. And my go to, you know escape, like way of escapism, is to lose myself in the lives of others and live vicariously through other people who create content, which shows to me that there is a certain timeless charm in leading a slow life, like a life which is not sort of uh, you know it's not just neck and neck competition, and it's not just trying to uh, literally find your way up the ladder. There exists a life beyond all that. So I find videos related to slow living, or indulgent living. Like I find those kind of things like really, you know those are the kind of practical rituals I adopt to find my place of calm. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it has been a fascinating conversation talking to you.
Yeah.
You have a fascinating brain,
Thank you.
and I love exploring that. I would love for you to come back on the show again. You
Sure.
know,
Absolutely, I would love.
this is my last question for you today. If you could put one word or a short message on a giant billboard to reach millions, what would it be? It's a classic podcasting question.
Yeah. The only one I could come up with, which I genuinely believe should be the one, is it's okay not to be okay. Because, you have to let it go at some point. You have to, give yourself some grace and some, liberty to be yourself and to, just enjoy the process basically. And like, you don't have to be on your A game all the time. If you're feeling down and depressed, sit with yourself and, um, just explore the facets of your psyche that are, creating those waves of disturbance in your mind, and try to, just reason with yourself. And this whole process, it's okay to undergo this process. It's okay to take time out for yourself and to be easy on yourself basically.
Yeah, no, that's so profound. I think it's a profound advice. It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in a culture and society which aims for perfection all the time. Just our movies and all of that stuff. The people we celebrate, we call them celebrities for some reason, and we think like celebrities. So these are the personality we are celebrating. These are the ideals, and we are constantly aiming towards them. And what kind of people are they? They are perfect, like quote unquote perfect bodies, perfect lives, but sooner or later we find out that
It's not the
how
case.
imperfect they.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the case. That's just a illusion, as the name of your book suggests, right? It's a illusion which we live by, and we know it, but after know it, nothing changes. We still unconsciously, subconsciously are always aiming for that, and I think that really makes you. So you're already sad. It's okay to feel sad sometimes in life, but that aiming for perfection just makes it takes, which is crazy. Yeah. Before you leave, if somebody wants to connect with you and explore your work, where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at the handle Soul of Divya across social media. So you will find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at the same handle, which is also my personal brand. It's called Soul of Divya. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. I'll plug everything in the description. People can go there and find it. And thank you so much, my friend. It was a privilege talking to you. And please come back soon again. I'm fascinated by the words you use, and I wish to learn a lot of crazy words. I always fumble reading your poetry out loud, so I need to master a lot of
Right.
words.
Yeah.
And I love your work, love what you do, and keep doing that. My name for you is poetic psychologist. That's what you are to me.
Okay. Thank you.
so,
I'm flattered.
so yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for having me. Thanks so much. It was really amazing speaking to you at length about these topics.